Today's topic is lipid, and in this lesson I'm going to tell about properties, functions of lipids, and structure, classification, and biological role of lipids. And the first of all, properties of lipids. So these lipids are water insoluble and which are soluble in non-polar organic solvents like benzene, ether, and acetone. Why? Because lipid is containing fatty acid content. So these fatty acids, which are hydrophobic in nature, so that's why these are water insoluble. And these lipids are having the essential elements of carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen in a simple lipids. And whereas in case of complex lipids, so which is also containing nitrogen and phosphorus. On hydrolysis of these lipids, it gives fatty acids, for example, triglycerides. So when it is hydrolyzed, the triglycerides gets hydrolyzed and it is giving one molecule of glycerol and 3 molecules of fatty acids. And these lipids are useful in plant and animal metabolism. Functions of lipids. Here lipids are used as storage form of energy. So these are the long-term storage form of energy, and for carbohydrates are short-term form of energy and instant energy, but here lipids will give a long-term storage of energy. And these lipids also supply the essential fatty acids. So generally, some fatty acids are not synthesized by body, like omega fatty acids. So these fatty acids can be supplied by lipids, by the diet. So these fatty acids are called to be essential fatty acids. And it is also useful for the structural components of cell membranes. So most of the cell membranes are made up of phospholipids, so which are structural components of cell membranes. So these phospholipids will be useful for the regulating cell membrane. And also lipids are useful to provide electrical insulation and protection from the cold temperatures. So due to these properties, here aquatic animals are having the insulation property from the cold temperatures. And also these lipids are providing mechanical protections for the internal organs. It is providing a cushioning. A fat is deposited around the organs and it is providing a cushioning to the organs. Metabolic regulators. Here lipids are useful for the synthesizing hormones, sterols, so mostly cholesterols, which are useful for the formation of vitamin D, bile acids, and other sterol hormones. And these lipids also useful for transport of fat soluble vitamins. So fat soluble vitamins like vitamin A, vitamin D, E, and K. So these fat soluble vitamins can be transported. And this is a classification of lipids. Here lipids are classified into simple lipids, complex lipids, and derived lipids. Simple lipids are again two types, fats and oils and waxes. Complex lipids, so these are the three important examples: phospholipids, glycolipids, and lipoproteins, so which are comes under complex lipids. The third one is derived lipids, steroids, and terpenes. So we can know all of these information so in the later slides. So first one is simple lipids. Here, these simple lipids are containing the essential elements of carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. It doesn't have nitrogen, it doesn't have phosphations. So these simple lipids are divided into two important fats, neutral or true fats, and waxes. There is a small difference between these two lipids. In both fats, fatty acid is present. These are the esters of fatty acids with glycerol. In both fats, fatty acid is present, but in neutral or true fats, fatty acids along with glycerol is present, but whereas in case of waxes, fatty acids along with a long chain of alcohol is present. So this is the main difference between these two fats. And these neutral or true fats are two types, glycerol and fatty acids. So glycerol is having 3 carbon compound. Here this is the glycerol structure, which is having 3 carbons, and 3 hydroxy groups are attached. So next, fatty acid. So fatty acid is a long chain. It is having a long chain. Sometimes it is having a single bond. Most of the time it is having single bond, but sometimes it is having double bonds also. If the fatty chain is having only single bond, then it is called to be saturated fatty acid. If the fatty acid is having double bonds, then it is called to be unsaturated fatty acids. So these fatty acids can be attached at the place of hydrogen in the hydroxyl group. Then the whole molecule is called to be triglycerides. So that means triglycerides are containing one molecule of glycerol and 3 molecules of fatty acids. Sometimes these fatty acids, so we are having a mixture of fatty acids like saturated fatty acid and also unsaturated fatty acids. And these unsaturated fatty acids, which is having double bond. So this unsaturated fatty acid is again 2 types. A cis form unsaturated fatty acid and trans form unsaturated fatty acids. So trans form unsaturated fatty acid, so which is solid in nature, and this is not a good fat. But cis form is liquid in nature. So why? Because here the arrangement is not linear. So that's why the liquid portion, it is available in the form of liquid state. But whereas in case of saturated fatty acids, here there is no double bond. So it is completely a tightly packed, there is no space and there is no interaction of these hydrogen molecules with other molecules. Why? Because this is having hydrophobic nature. It does not react with water molecules. These are hydrophobic compound. So here the saturated fatty acid is solid in nature. The next one is waxes. So as I told you already that waxes are containing fatty acids along with long chain saturated alcohols. Examples: beeswax, wool fat, sebum, cerumen, plant wax, and paraffin wax. Here beeswax is obtained from honeybees. So these are the secretions of abdominal glands. And wool fat is obtained from a wool of sheep. And this fat will be obtained from the secretions of cutaneous glands. And the third one is sebum, so which is obtained from the skin. So these are the secretions of sebaceous glands. And fourth one is cerumen, so which is also called to be earwax, which are obtained from the secretions from external auditory canal. And next one is plant wax, which is obtained from the plant. so which is useful for the preventing of transpiration. So water evaporation will be controlled by this plant wax. And the last one is paraffin wax, so which is produced from petroleum jet. The next one is complex lipids. So the name here complex means here it is having the essential element of carbon, hydrogen, oxygen along with phosphations and nitrogen base. And these are the three important examples for this complex lipids: phospholipids, glycolipids, and lipoproteins. So this is the structure of phospholipids, so which is having two fatty acid tails and a head body. The head and tail will be present. So tail will be made up of fatty acid and head is made up of three important groups. So one is glycerol, phosphate, and third one is polar group, which is containing nitrogen. So due to presence of polar groups here, this is hydrophilic in nature. So which is solubilized in water, so which is reacting with water. Due to presence of fatty acid chains, here the tail is hydrophobic in nature, which repels the water molecules. The polar group is containing nitrogen atom, so which is providing positive charge. So due to positive charge and phosphate ion, so which is providing negative charge. Here the head portion of this phospholipid is getting hydrophilic nature, and head of this phospholipid is attached with tail by the backbone, which is called glycerol. Here glycerol is acting as a backbone here, and these phospholipids will be present in cell membrane. These are the main structural components which are present in cell membrane. And the next one is glycolipids. So these glycolipids are also comes under complex lipids. So here these glycolipids are having sugar content. So that means a fatty acid chain, so which is attached to the sugar by O glycosidic bond, then it is called to be a glycolipid. So here we can take two types of sugar molecules. Sometimes we can take glucose molecules or galactose molecules. Due to presence of sugar molecules, it is called to be polar head. Due to presence of a long chain fatty acid, the tail is hydrophobic in nature. And this tail is called to be ceramide. So ceramide is attached with galactose by O glycosidic bond. So then the whole molecule is called to be galactocerebroside. Here it is called to be cerebroside. This is the basic unit of glycolipids. So why? Because so these glycolipids which are present in brain tissue, so that's why this is called cerebrosides. And the next one is lipoproteins. So these lipoproteins also comes under complex lipids. And this is also a main constituent in a membrane, cell membranes, and which is found in milk and egg yolk. So these are the sources of lipoprotein. And this lipoprotein can be divided into 5 important types: chylomicrons, VLDL, very low density lipids; LDL, low density lipids; HDL, high density lipids; and fatty acid albumin complex. So here LDL is called to be bad cholesterol. So why? Because the protein content which is present in this LDL is comparatively less, but whereas in case of HDL, the protein content which is present in the HDL will be more. So LDL is acting as a bad cholesterol. So why? Because here this LDL will be useful for the transporting cholesterol from the liver to the cell. So that means due to increase the level of LDL, the cholesterol levels will be increased in the cell, and HDL is called to be good cholesterol. So why? Because HDL is having more protein part, and which is useful for transporting cholesterol from the cell to liver. So that means the cholesterol levels which are present in the cell will be reduced by this HDL. So that is why HDL is called to be a good cholesterol. The next one is derived lipids. So as the name indicates, that derived lipids which are derived from simple fats and oils and complex lipids. So by the process of hydrolysis. So these are the examples of derived lipids: steroids, terpenes, and prostaglandins. So here these steroids, so which are having ring structures, here 4 ring structures are available. So these are the examples for steroids: testosterone, cortisone, vitamin D, and cholesterol. And these steroids, so do not containing any fatty acid, long chain fatty acid chain, but here these steroids are having the properties of fats like water insolubility, hydrophobic nature, etc. So due to that fat-like properties, here these steroids are classified under derived lipids. So in these steroids, cholesterol is the main steroid, which is a precursor for the formation of cortisone and testosterone and vitamin D and bile acids. And cholesterol and ergosterol, so these are called to be a common sterols. And the next one is terpene. So terpene is also comes under derived lipids, so which are essential oils produced by plants and which gives the fragrance. So these are the examples of terpenes: phytol, carotenoid, lycopene, and gibberellin. So phytol, so which is present in vitamin A, E, and K. These are the fat soluble vitamins. And carotenoid pigment, so which is a precursor for the vitamin A synthesis. So here carotenoid pigment is also a terpene. Lycopene pigment, so which is present in tomatoes. And the gibberellin, so which is the plant hormones, and this is also a terpene. So these are all comes under derived lipids. Why? Because these lipids are derived from the fatty acids, simple fats, and complex fats. And the last is summary part. Here lipids are one of the important biomolecules. So we have other biomolecules like proteins, nucleic acids, carbohydrates. And these lipids are useful for the storage of energy, especially long-term energy for about 1 month in animals. This is not instant energy like carbohydrates. And these are the lipids which are source for the fat soluble vitamins like A, D, E, and K, and also useful for producing steroids and prostaglandins, so which are the regulatory hormones. And these lipids are classified into simple fats and oils, complex lipids, and derived lipids. Triglycerides are the example for the simple fats, so which are having ester of glycerol with fatty acids. So these triglycerides serve as fuel reserve of animals. Here the triglycerides, which is producing 9 kilocalories per gram. That means every gram is producing 9 kilocalories energy. If you're comparing with the carbohydrates, each molecule of carbohydrate, which is giving 4 calories per gram. So that's why here the triglycerides are energy resources. And the next one is phospholipids, which comes under complex lipids. So these phospholipids are having hydrophobic tail and hydrophilic head. So these are the components of cell membranes, and which are useful for the regulating membrane permeability. So it depends of these phospholipids, ions, some specific ions, so will be permeable. And the last one is cholesterol, so which is a derived lipid, so which is very much essential for the synthesis of bile acids, hormones, and vitamin D. So this is the end of the topic. Thank you.